From 4 News Now, with live updates throughout the day, breaking news as it happens, and weather every 10 minutes. This is KXLY Plus.
Good afternoon for 4 News Now. I'm Rob King. We had a lot of big changes with Washington State football that they're going to look quite different next year. And to break it all down for us with the latest information, we have Sports Director Julian Mininsohn. Julian, the big one, I guess, is that WSU is going to have some different opponents next year. What's going on?
That's right. We heard rumblings about this for a while, and of course, with the uncertainty in the Pac-12, the big question was, what was the schedule going to look like for Washington State and, quite frankly, Oregon State next season? Well, WSU and OSU have finalized scheduling alliance with the Mountain West Conference, so that means WSU and OSU will each play 6 games against Mountain West opponents next season, 3 home and 3 away. So they get that schedule. Now, this does not include games that were already previously scheduled against Mountain West teams. WSU already had a couple of those, so this is going to be in addition to those games. So that means they've got at least a skeleton of a schedule to work for just this next season, maybe potentially the following season in 2025 as well, while they have a 2-year grace period to work as a Pac-2 conference while they figure out their future.
Yeah, so a lot of the opponents were kind of used to them playing in the Pac-12. They probably won't see it all now.
Yeah, that's the idea. The only one that we're going to be used to seeing is Oregon State, because WSU and OSU are kind of on the outside looking in when it comes to conference realignment. So some of the details of the scheduling alliance is both WSU and OSU, they're going to pay a fee of $14 million to the Mountain West to get this done. I know money's been an issue when it comes to WSU and their resources, but you didn't really have anywhere to go. You needed some games on the schedule, and so this gives you at least some clarity moving forward. And the big thing is the transfer portal date opens on Monday, December 4th, and that's when players on your team could leave and look for a new home. And this gives at least the coaching staff and head coach Jake Dickert some clarity about, hey, we know who we're going to be playing. We know, kind of have a general idea of where we're going to be playing, and he could sell the program to recruits as opposed to maybe a schedule that was not there.
But you got to think, not being the prestigious Pac-12 now, that's going to affect recruiting for sure.
Yeah, and we've already kind of seen it. Yesterday, wide receiver Josh Kelly, he announced his intention to leave Washington State and find a new home for next season. And then, of course, the big one today was quarterback Cameron Ward announcing his intention to transfer. This is something that was kind of coming down the pipeline, especially after the Apple Cup. There was a lot of past tense in his press conference, a lot of finality, and it just kind of seemed that with the NIL situation as well, along with the uncertainty with the Pac-12, Cameron Ward can probably get a better offer, a more substantial offer from another power conference school. So he wants to get to the NFL, and that's kind of the idea and the sentiment that Jake Dickert echoed today in his press conference.
Yeah, kind of go over what he kind of laid out for us, because did you get to speak with Athletic Director Pat Chun as well? What was their kind of thoughts on this kind of whirlwind of changes that just happened within the last 6 hours?
Yeah, well, at least they have a plan moving forward. Pat Chun gave a lot of the details that I kind of mentioned when it comes to the numbers and what it might look like. Now, something that Cougs fans may want to pay attention to is that WSU and OSU will not be eligible for a Mountain West championship, even though they're playing Mountain West teams. Now, this is just for 1 year. There is the option to potentially make this a long-term partnership, but as Pat Chun said in his press conference earlier today, that 2 years ago college football didn't look like it was today, and so 2 years from now, when that grace period between WSU and OSU are over, it may look completely different. So a lot of the reports leading into this was that there was an understanding between WSU, OSU, and the Mountain West about a long-term maybe partnership or merger. A lot of that will come out with the money that gets distributed amongst the Pac-12 legal battle that's going on right now between WSU, OSU, and the teams that are leaving the conference. So that's huge. As far as Jake Dickert, they're going to get into a recruiting period. He's going to be hitting the trail without a bowl game this year. That's something that he's going to have more time out on the trail recruiting. And of course, priority number one is finding out what you're going to have at quarterback As of now, they have John Mateer on the roster. He was a guy that was kind of used in situational downs and distances, but was very impressive in the spring game and very impressive throwing the ball downfield. And maybe Cougs fans will get a lot more of that on display next year. But he's not going to shy away from the portal either. Cam Ward was somebody that Dicker got in the portal from an FCS school and set the world ablaze when it came to that. And so he turned out to be a guy that can win you football games. So there's no question that Dicker could potentially dive into the portal again and see what there is at quarterback as well.
Yeah, his players clearly like to play for him, and that's going to help him now that he doesn't have to prep for this bowl game. He's able to just get started.
Sure. Yeah, no, 100%. And that was something that he talked about last year, of the scheduling of the bowl game, because even if they did get to a bowl game this year, it would be earlier in the bowl season, and that really cuts into your time. Last year, I remember at the LA Bowl, Dickert was flying back and forth from LAX, out to different recruiting visits and all that, and really kind of impeded him when it came to his process of recruiting. So the bright side of not having a bowl game this year is you get a head start in recruiting, and anything you do in recruiting this year, especially this year with the uncertainty of the conference and after next season, it's going to go much more a long way, be more beneficial than maybe an Independence Bowl, meaningless Independence Bowl would do.
Julian, there was all this Pac-12 dramas that's been going on. It didn't seem to affect the Cougs early in the season. You know, they came out there, this high-flying Sports Center offense, and all of a sudden they hit one of the largest roadblocks we've ever seen, and petered through the rest of the season. So do you think the outside of the football field drama had impacts in the locker room?
It's difficult to tell. I'm sure there was, it wasn't not a distraction for, at least the WSU athletic department as a whole. I think part of the reason is they went in with this moniker, Cougs versus everybody, and it's us against the world, and nobody kind of wants us. And that was a motivating factor going into the season. And then you saw what they did, the 4-0 start, and were ranked 13th in the country. And then a bye week hit. And I think it was kind of them toying with handling the success, and how do you say us against the world when you're on top of the world, And so I think that was something that impacted the team moving forward, and it kind of spiraled down from there. The good news is at the end of the season, you had a 42-point win over Colorado, and then you took potentially a team that's going to the college football playoff in Washington down to the wire. And so those are performances that you can look and say, hey, that was truly who we were, not the team that lost 6 straight games, because that's the team that we were, closer to what we were at the start of the season. So WSU right now can go off any building block and bulletin board material that they can get, because there is a competitive disadvantage in the conference. There's a competitive disadvantage in recruiting and NIL right now. And so anything you can have to kind of muster up some moxie in your program, you need to do that moving forward. And that's what at least starts here with the Mountain West Alliance for next year.
Absolutely. And speaking of moving forward, what is the latest that we know as far as what the Pac-12 it looks like?
Well, at least right now, you're going to play next season. The Cougs will have 6 games against the Mountain West. Well, 8 technically, because they had 2 previously scheduled games already. So they'll have 8 games against the Mountain West Conference in total. Then you're going to play an FCS team. You're going to play Oregon State. There is one weekend spot available for the Cougs, and the hope is to get a power opponent. There's been rumblings that it could be Texas Tech, which would be huge. And then, of course, you have the neutral site game against the Huskies of the Apple Cup at Lumen Field with the 5-year. Yeah, the neutral site game that is in Seattle. And then alternating at the campuses every other year for 4 years after next year. So at least that's what you have for the schedule moving forward. Of course, when it comes to the court case right now, WSU and OSU were given control of the conference, but then UW is appealing that decision right now. So that's kind of a wait and see game, but that will determine a lot of things moving forward, especially when it comes to money and potentially using that money to pay the out fees for Mountain West teams to have a merger of the conference under the Pac-12 name, which is what they want, because when it comes to wanting a TV deal, you want that Pac-12 name because it holds a lot more weight than maybe a Mountain West does. So athletic director Pat Chun said that once they get that final 12th spot for a scheduling for a game next season solidified, then you can go into the non-revenue sports and see what their schedule looks like. And then you can get into the TV deals when it comes to football, which all surrounds about that. It all, circles back to that bottom dollar.
Got it. Julian, well, I appreciate your time. Thanks for breaking it down for us. I like that we can get into the nitty-gritty of it and then really take our time. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, I mean, I guess the only thing is like that next year, this has been obviously one of the toughest years for WSU when it comes to the athletic department, but at least you have some sort of clarity moving forward, and it's probably the right move, especially geographically, as opposed to moving, joining a schedule across the country with a conference where maybe you won't be able to sustain financially. So at least you have some sort of skeleton moving forward, and Cougs fans can finally get excited about some potential games down the line.
Right on. Well, I know we're excited. Real quick, Pac-12 championship game tonight. It's preempting our newscast, so we do have a special edition at 4. Julian, who are you picking?
I'm going to go with the Ducks on this one. I've
Is that a heart or a head?
Ahead. I obviously I covered that team for a few years there in Eugene, and now kind of seeing the Huskies, being here in this state. It's hard to beat a team twice, especially in this conference. I think the Ducks have been, maybe other than Georgia and Michigan, the best team in the country over the past few weeks. And that offense looks good. While Washington's kind of been barely floating above water a little bit, they've almost gotten beaten by Oregon State, Utah, and then of course the Cougs last weekend. And so I think it's just a matter of time that you play with fire. So many times you're going to get burned, and I think that happens tonight. And I think the Ducks end up going to a college football playoff.
I think a lot of our viewers would like the Huskies to get burned.
Yeah.
Julian, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Of course, Rob. Thanks. Anytime.
And like I said, we do have a special edition of 4 News Now at 4. So in about an hour from now, you'll be able to get more breakdown from Julian plus reaction from head coach Jake Tickert coming up. And that's it from me in the studio. So for now, I'm Rob King for 4 News Now.